Most of the birds of the Galapagos, like many of the other creatures found on these islands, are unique, not found anywhere else in the world, even though they are similar to those found on the mainland. Yellow warblers, one of the few colorful birds found here, flit about the lava rocks in search of food. They peck daintily, but the herons that stalk the shore gulp theirs most undaintily. Good thing his neck is a two-way stretch. Oyster catchers with beaks like chopsticks have found a rarity in the Galapagos, a white sand beach sandwiched between the black rocks that line the shore. The Galapagos have been called many things: hell, a laboratory of evolution, the end of the world, Noah's Ark of the Pacific. Darwin said that here, both in time and space, we seem to be brought nearer that mystery of mysteries, the first appearance of new beings on Earth. Born of volcanic activity, the Galapagos are not as old as one might think. Datings from lava flows show that most of the islands are less than 1 million years old, whereas the mainland of South America is 4.5 billion years old. Herman Melville described the Galapagos landscape as arrested torrents of tormented lava. Indeed, some of the islands are still almost completely bare of any plants, except this phallic cactus, which is a pioneer colonist of barren flows. The islands are the tops of gigantic volcanoes, most of which rise for 7,000 to 10,000 feet above the floor of the sea. Lava tunnels are formed when a flow congeals on the top, while the molten stream moves on. This one clearly shows the side walls. Each island is more than a collection of plants and animals. It is a community of organisms living together as a unit, from the largest to the smallest, each dependent upon the other. So these islands are not only a laboratory of evolution, they are a laboratory of ecology, of the delicate balance that exists between organisms and their environment. The cool Humboldt current creates, right here on the equator, a curious colony of emigres from colder climes. Penguins, for instance, flightless exiles from a distant Antarctic home. In the remote past, a few birds must have been swept northward by the Humboldt current. The breed that has evolved is small, but it clearly reveals its ancestry. Penguins live beside flamingos, the only flamingos known in the Pacific. They are very shy now, but unfortunately, they have learned too late that man is dangerous. They are quite rare, almost extinct. Darwin's finches are of special interest to scientists because it was these birds that gave Darwin his insight into the origin of species. He was amazed by the variety of their beaks, and reasoned that they must have come from a common ancestor and gone through a long process of development. This picture shows the comparative size of the beaks of the 13 species of Galapagos finches. It was clear to Darwin that the birds had found different foods available on different islands, and through successive generations had evolved accordingly. For instance, on one island, they developed slender beaks for probing flowers. On another, small beaks for catching insects. On another, strong, thick beaks for cracking seeds, and fingers too. Thus, Darwin showed how development occurred by natural means, without supernatural intervention. To see the great variety of birds of the Galapagos, one must visit several different islands, since each island has its own distinctive bird life. One of the most interesting islands is Daphne. Hardly an island, really nothing more than the peak of a volcano that has risen from the bottom of the sea. To go ashore here requires the agility of a trapeze artist. Sheer cliffs rise straight from the sea. The flat bottom of both craters is the home of thousands of strange birds called blue-footed boobies. From here, one sees clearly the smaller crater above and the larger one below. The bluefoots form a dense colony, and no other birds, not even other species of boobies, intrude. The smell, heightened by the heat down here in the crater cut off from the breeze, plus their raucous voices, require a sense of humor to endure. Perhaps that's why blue-footed boobies are such clowns. They're as comical as their name. It looks as though they're mad, but more likely this is his blue-footed way of making love to her. This is a bluefoot baby. Many of the bluefoots have two babies which they nurse to maturity if the food supply is sufficiently abundant. If it is not, they frequently let one die. Both parents seem to agree that this is best, as they have apparently done here. Just their way of controlling their population explosion. Boobies are plunge divers and feed their babies by regurgitation. So when the babies vibrate their necks in this manner, it's their way of saying, "I'm ready for another gurgitation." Here's a male displaying. That's what it's called when he carries on in this strange manner to attract a female. Then if he's lucky enough to attract one, they both join in a head-bobbing dance. On the rim of the crater, there are other birds. A dove, a white or masked booby. These cousins of the bluefoots never visit their relatives. They stay up here on the rim and leave the floor to the bluefoots. This is a swallow-tailed gull, photogenic and not at all camera shy. Since no land mammals managed to get a footing here in the Galapagos until quite recently, they are isles without fear, often even without shyness. From this point of view, this end of the world is a Garden of Eden. A frigate bird on its nest. Pretty unattractive until you see it in flight. And then, with a wingspan of 8 feet, which is 40% more wing area than any other seabird of similar weight. This ugly duckling becomes the most beautiful thing in the sky. They've been sighted 1,000 miles from land and 4,000 feet high. They feed on the wing and specialize in piracy, snatching the food from the mouths of other birds. Frigates nest in trees or bushes, and sometimes on the ground. They lay one large white egg, about twice the size of a hen's egg. Here's a male with his red throat sac deflated, but when he's courting, it's blown up like a big red balloon. That's the way he attracts the females. Here's another frigate bird with her baby. The nest, made of dry sticks, is a fairly unstable launching pad for such a big bird. Baby does not like being left alone, especially when a strange-looking object sticks a camera in his face. The chicks are dependent on their parents for food for 6 months, much longer than any other seabird. And since the parents get their food by thieving, they usually live near other birds on whom they prey. At Sombrero Chino on James Island, the lava is the blackest black, absorbing all the light, sharp and difficult to walk on, and hawks hover overhead. There's the reason, a young hawk. These birds are usually very tame, even friendly. But when they think their young are endangered, the whole flock comes to the rescue. They began a nose-diving barrage that made any work impossible. The baby is on the left. The other is the sentinel. The hawks put up such a valiant fight, the men hadn't the heart to frighten them further. They contented themselves with one shot and left Sombrero Chino to these birds of prey. Because man's invasions have been infrequent, these enchanted isles have retained some of their look of eternity. Let's hope that that enchantment can be preserved.